Hi guys, so I just wanted to go over chapter 13.2 with you, and that is the section that talks about statehood for Florida and Texas. And you can see I have the Florida flag here, and then this is the Texas flag. And if you notice, there is one star on here. It is a lone star, which we'll circle back to at the end. Starting off with Florida. Florida was transferred to the United States from Spain in 1821 as part of the Adams-Onis Treaty. Tallahassee was made the state capital. Just an FYI, it is still our state capital. New settlers came to Florida from Virginia, Georgia, and the Carolinas because of the fertile soil. And this means that especially in northern and central Florida, it is easy to grow things because there's still a lot of nutrients in the soil, as opposed to the soil in the other southern states, which was all dried out because of overuse, meaning there had just been stuff that had been planted in it and all those nutrients had been sucked up by the plants. Planters settled in western and northwestern Florida, and they mainly grew cotton and tobacco. In central Florida, we had small farms and cattle ranches. Down here, it talks about the population. So if we look in 1824, there were just under 10,000 people that were living here. Okay, 13 years later, in 1837, we had 48,000 people that were living in Florida. That was a population growth of 4 times the amount. That's pretty impressive. About half of the population down here in 1837 was enslaved. It was enslaved labor that was down here. With Florida statehood, there were 56 people chosen to write out our Constitution, which is the plan for the state government. Some of those key points that were included: there would be a governor that would be elected and serve for 4 years. There would be an elected General Assembly, also could be called our legislator. There would be public schools that were set up, and because this was a southern state, slavery was allowed. Let's not forget that there was the Missouri Compromise that had said that everything south of Missouri was going to be slaveholding, and then everything in the north was going to be free. In 1839, the Florida Constitution was submitted to the U.S. government for approval, and it took 6 years for it to be added as a state in 1845. That was because Florida had to wait for another free state to apply for statehood, and that state was Iowa. That brings us to Texas. In 1821, Mexico won its independence from Spain. Texas was a part of Mexico, and the residents in this area were called Tejanos. There was a guy, his name was Stephen F. Austin, and it actually this started with his dad, Moses Austin. But anyways, Stephen F. Austin brought 300 American families to the Texas territory, and because of the rules and policies of the time, Austin got the title impresario, which was kind of like a king of that area. He had a lot of control over what happened there. He still had to abide by the laws of the country, including learn Spanish, convert to Catholicism, and pay local taxes. But he did have quite a bit of control over what was happening in the immediate area for these settlers that he brought. Anyways, those settlers didn't want to abide by these laws, and that created conflict. So eventually Mexico ended up outlawing more Americans to move to Texas. Mexico issued a decree saying that that's it, no more American immigration. Because of this, Austin and Sam Houston tried to reach an agreement with Mexico. That didn't work out. Mexico did not want to allow them to form their own government. So Texas says, well, okay, we're going to do it anyways. We're independent now. Obviously, this didn't go over well. So in 1835, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna led the Mexican forces into Texas to stop their insurrection or bid for independence, which, again, you can see my quotes here because I think that this term is very subjective, whether you're looking at it from the Texan perspective, the American perspective, or the Mexican perspective, but that's a whole discussion for a whole other time. As part of this battle, the Texan forces, they barricaded themselves inside a mission building that was called the Alamo. There was fighting that lasted for 13 days, give or take, and almost all of those Texans inside the Alamo were killed. This ended up becoming a kind of source of inspiration and pride for Texans, and there was a phrase that they adopted because of this, and it was "Remember the Alamo." 1836, the Texan army, led by a Sam Houston, led a surprise attack near San Jacinto, and this was not good for Santa Anna because he was captured. He was also wounded, and he was forced to sign what became known as the Treaties of Velasco, and that made Texas an independent country. And that independent country was called the Lone Star Republic. So again, looking at the flag of Texas, we see just that one star, and that kind of harkens back to this. And Sam Houston, he was elected as president of the Lone Star Republic. Because Texas was a southern state, it would be admitted as a slave-holding state. Initially, Northerners were against adding a slave state, but by 1844, the mood of the country had changed, and Manifest Destiny had become a very popular idea. President Polk, he was definitely a supporter of this Manifest Destiny, so that kind of influenced the addition of Texas, and it was admitted to the Union as a slave state in 1845.